In this tutorial, we're going to learn on how to prepare this scene for us to work and stylize it with MNPRX. As you might notice, in this scene, there's a mixture between MNPRX materials and normal Maya materials like this Lambert, or here there's another Lambert even without a texture. So in order to start the stylization process, we need to assign to all of these objects an MNPRX material. While it is true that MNPRX also supports Lambert materials to a certain extent, as you can see, we can see the material here. The problem is that once you mix art-directed materials with normal Maya materials, you might see some ghosting. As you can see here, Tomo's art direction is showing through the pants or the shirt of this character with normal Maya materials. And this is because normal Maya materials don't support the art direction that MNPRX materials do. So without further ado, let's get started and learn how to do this. The first thing we will want to do is to see what actually has what type of material. And there's different ways to see this. So it's very easy for us to say, okay, I want to see what's lit and what's not, and then recognize what is an MNPRX material and what isn't. But in the case you have lights in the scene, this becomes a bit more tricky. You can either hide the lights or you can look at the internal buffers of MNPRX. If you go here to the Pass tool, this is a Pass inspector, here you can view any internal target of MNPRX. And if we switch to the normals target, for example, we clearly see what materials in the scene are MNPRX materials, because these are showing the normals, and which ones are not, as you can see here. Now this combined with wireframe unshaded will allow you to easily view, okay, what has an MNPRX material and what doesn't. So let's go back to the color output to see what is actually being rendered. And let's learn a little bit about the Material Presets tool. The Material Presets tool allows you to very easily assign MNPRX materials to objects in the scene. This can be either previously textured or just the default colored material. So in the case of this character here, since it already has some textures, we can go ahead and apply a textured preset. So we just select the object, double click on textured, and then you will see that the textured preset comes in and applies the exact same texture onto the shirt as an MNPRX material. So basically that's what we need to do. We need to do that with the entire scene. So we just need to select the next object and apply a textured material. Now the entire character has an MNPRX material. In the case of this curtain, since it doesn't have a texture, it doesn't really make sense to apply a textured preset. So we can just apply a watercolor preset instead, and then come here and add a value or a gray color to it again. And this needs to be done with every object in the scene that is, however, visible from the actual shot cam. So this is our shot cam. Someone has prepared this scene for me already, and they have put in a card in front of the lens. We're gonna learn more about this in a later tutorial. For now, we're just going to hide this plane. There we go. So as you can see, what we see in the scene is this. So there's no point for us in spending time in setting up the materials, for example, inside the hut, right? Especially for this tutorial. You can do that if you want to. So let's get started and load MNPRX materials on all the objects that we're seeing from that camera view. Let's keep in mind though that we won't be seeing many materials at the far back. As you can see, our color key is quite limited. This is a dream sequence. So within this dream sequence, you don't see very far. So we need to take this into account so that we can save some time. Let's go back to our scene and let's get started. So I'm gonna visualize here within the normals what object has an MNPRX material and what doesn't. Just take into account, for example, these planks have an MNPRX materials, but because the normals in this direction are exactly at 0, 0, 0, they will be black. However, you can easily recognize here at the top that it does have normals. So that's something that will come with practice. Let's get started and assign MNPRX materials to it. In this scene, most of the materials are Lambert with textures, so we can simply use the texture preset for most of it. So let's just select this, assign textured, and continue so forth. It's always good to check from your shot cam what is actually being seen. So as you can see, we started from this palm here and this house, which is the left limit, and then it goes all the way here. Let's change to a perspective view and do the same thing with the remaining objects. Again, if you want to see more than just the black, you can always enable wireframe unshaded, and then you can see what objects we've missed in the assigning MNPRX materials. By the way, when multiple objects are sharing the same materials, the tool will recognize this, so you won't need to select every single object when they share the same material. You see, these two plants were sharing the same material and they got the preset. And here on the right side, we also need to prepare some objects. Now this already has it assigned, but all the normals are facing in this direction, so we can't see that. All right, and I think for what we're going to see in the camera, we might be pretty close. Let's check it out. So if we see here, we might see up until here, maybe this lamppost as well, but everything after that will be blown out by lighting. So this should be fine. Let's change back to the color output from normals target to the output target. And just for the sake of it, let's also set up the atmosphere range to the right value here. So let's set this up to 50, and then it's gonna start probably at around 10 instead. So we're setting here at how many Maya units from the front to the back this color here is going to kick in. And this color in this case will be something rather yellowish, very bright yellow. We're gonna change this later on. All right, so now we learned how to apply the different material presets, about applying depending on if it's already pre-textured or if it's not, you just select watercolor, and then with this you can apply any texture you want. You can learn more about the materials in the documentation. And yeah, you can enable and disable the albedo texture anytime you want. Yeah, apart from that, it just simply takes a bit of practice. There might be at this pole doesn't seem to be, yes. So in case you're in doubt, you can always select the material and apply a preset. The texture preset doesn't really change much, so you should be rather safe even with something that has a stylization. Double clicking here. In this case, it didn't work, but most of the times it shouldn't be much of a problem. Simply to double check, as long as it doesn't have any art direction, to double check and just click on the texture preset. It shouldn't change many settings, and yeah, that's it. So the next tutorial, we're gonna modify all of these materials to reach this lighting here, and we're also gonna apply the lights for it as well, of course. So make sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified about future tutorials. It's going to be a complex scene, but we're going to come as close as possible to this color key here.